Hello, friends. Welcome to my November-December reading wrap-up. I recognize that this is late. However, we were traveling over the 1st of January, and so I'm just now filming this. So, yeah. Anywho, before we get into the reading wrap-up, I'm very pleased to announce that in November, I got a Kindle, and I love her. I feel like I'm just becoming a Kindle girly. I have wanted one of these for a while, but I didn't want to go and spend the money. I hate spending money, so I don't know. I have the Kindle app on my phone, but I wanted something that was outside of my phone to read with. And it was like a Christmas gift to myself, which is an excuse, but a fantastic excuse, and I'm running with it, and I love this. Now, in November, I started with reading The Last Letter of Rachel Ellsworth by Barbara O'Neill. This book follows two main characters, and it's dual POV. Mariah Ellsworth, who is kind of a famous skier and really lives the high life, and then Veronica Barrington or something is her last name, and she is just a recently divorced mother of 4 kids and just very different lives, and they end up meeting, and they're both really going through some tough stuff. Mariah had a bad accident and just is kind of fighting through that, and obviously Veronica just got over a tough divorce and is working through those feelings and kind of just their relationship, and they end up going on a trip together. It is a very interesting read, and just seeing their dynamic is really cool, and seeing them kind of deal with the tough stuff in life is also cool to see and watch them work through that. I gave this book 3.25 stars. Like I said, I really enjoyed it, and I was not really expecting that necessarily. I hadn't heard anybody talk about it. It just was a random book that I found that sounded interesting. So yeah, really kind of came out of nowhere, but it was a good read for sure. Next up, I read The Great Alone by Chris and Hannah. And oh my goodness, I loved this book. I have read one other Chris and Hannah book, The Nightingale, and really enjoyed that read. I, so far, am a huge Chris and Hannah fan. I know I've only read 2 of her books, but she writes such great characters, such great stories, such great emotion. This book, I gave 4.75 stars. Again, super sad book. This book follows our main character, Lenny, and she's just a girl growing up with her 2 parents, and her dad is a war vet, and he is dealing with some tough stuff because of that. He came back from the war and was a very different man than who he was when he left. He has some alcohol issues and just some violence issues. He's a tough guy, and he does love his family, but again, he's just really going through it, and it's hard for him sometimes. And they decide to move to Alaska to start over, to have a new life in really just backwoods, kind of just a small community, and that's it. So it's kind of just following Lenny as she lives this Alaska life, this tough life, makes relationships there, and deals with her family situation, and all of that just works together to make such a great book. Like I said, really love this book. It was very sad. I will say some tears were shed, and I love that kind of book, and I would highly recommend, if you're a Chris and Hannah fan and you have not read this book, I highly recommend you pick it up. My next read was The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandani, maybe? Sorry if I said that wrong. This book I gave 2.75 stars. I thought it was a fine book. It was fun. It was cute. I read it in maybe mid-November, which I thought was going to be late because October feels like the witch books month, but it kind of worked around Christmas time, so actually it was fine, and I love reading books when they take place, so that was kind of a fun touch. We are following our main character, and she is a witch, but obviously in society they don't really tell people that they're witches, so she's kind of keeping it under wraps, but she's pretending to be a fake witch on the internet to kind of throw people off and make them think that she isn't a real witch. Little does she know, there's a home with 3 little witch girls, and somebody finds her on the internet and decides to ask her to come stay to help raise these little witches and teach them the ropes, teach them how to be witches. And so she goes, and it sparks relationships, and there definitely is that found family. I thought the characters were fun and sweet. It is a very cozy book, and there is some emotion. I don't always love it when they put kind of deeper emotion in cozy books. Like, it just feels like I'd rather have cozy book or super emotional book. So that kind of felt a little weird to me. But like I said, it was a fine book. It was cozy, and it was a fun read for that time of year. My next read was Evil Under the Sun by Agatha Christie. I don't think I filmed a single one of these where I haven't read an Agatha Christie book, but it was such a short, easy read, so I picked it up. Little did I know it actually takes place in the dead of summer on an island, so it was very much not November vibes, but it was fine nonetheless. It follows our main character, Hercule Poirot, who is Agatha Christie's kind of Sherlock Holmes, if you will. And he is on this island, and somebody ends up dead. So he's just following who could have done it. And obviously they're on an island, so it is a little bit harder for just a random person to come kill this person. So he's following all these different people who are on vacation here, trying to figure out who done it. Pretty straightforward mystery, but I always enjoy her books. I can never guess who it is. I gave it 3.5 stars. Again, it was a fun read. Then I read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I gave this book 2 stars, which I know some people are going to hate, but it was not my favorite. I read this in a reading vlog, so I talk about my deeper thoughts and feelings in that, but I didn't connect with the characters very well. It was sad, and I definitely can see how some people would really love it, and I want to read more of her books, but this one just wasn't my favorite. For my first December read this year, I read Blue Sisters by Coco Melors. This book I gave, I think, 3.25 stars. I thought it was good. I'd heard a lot of great things about it. And for me personally, it wasn't that great, but it definitely was a good book. And you know me, I love the book that really deals with the tough stuff, the deep emotions. And that definitely was a huge topic in this book. It followed 3 sisters, and one of their sisters had died, and their parents were going to sell that sister's apartment, and they were kind of not okay with that. So they kind of come from lots of different places in the world, and they come together. They haven't always had the best relationships with their sisters, so they're having to work through that. And obviously it's a tough time. They lost their sister. They're all grieving from that. One thing I thought was interesting is they all seem to grieve in very different ways and seem to work through their problems in very different ways. They're all very different characters, but ultimately they do love each other, and watching that and watching their relationship rekindle was really cool. And as a sister myself, I thought that was really cool to see. Just the whole premise of siblings fight, siblings have struggles, we're not always going to get along, but ultimately you're siblings. That is so cool to me, and I loved reading that. And yeah, I thought it was a good book. I will say it was very adult at times, and there was some spice, which I'm not a spice reader. I do not like reading spice, so that was not my favorite, but I also get why it was in there. So, all right, my next read was Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. Let me tell you about this book, okay? Before I give you my thoughts, I'll give you what the book is about, okay? We're following 2 main characters, Melody and our male main character, who is named Beat. Their parents, their moms, used to be in a band, and they broke up a long time ago, and now there's some producer or something that wants to film a reality TV show of their parents getting back together and going on tour, all the things. And so that reality TV show kind of forces that forced proximity. Melody and Beat have to get together again and work together. They've only met one time in their entire life, and then we get to watch their relationship, okay? I found this book, first of all, it was not Christmassy at all, which the cover looks super Christmassy. It's literally called Wreck the Halls. So I was expecting like a cheesy Christmas rom-com. There was like no ounce of Christmas. The only thing Christmassy about it was this reality TV show was gonna like air on Christmas Eve or something. That was it. They hardly mentioned Christmas. They went to like one Christmas party. Like, what? I don't know. I was expecting it to bleed Christmas, and it just was not that. Second of all, I found this book. It felt like the plot was there only for Melody and Beat to like be together. Like it was very insta love. I love a slow burn, and this was very much not that. It was a very physical attraction. It was just a very superficial romance, and it felt like the whole book was kind of just them obsessing over each other. Like there was very little actual plot. They just were in love with each other and kept mentioning how they couldn't stop thinking about each other. I gave this book 1.5 stars. It's probably my lowest. I think that's my lowest rated book that I have read, which I was reading Goodreads. Some people loved it. Some people gave it 5 stars. To each his own. For me personally, I very much did not like this book. My next read was My Cousin Rachel by Daphne Demure. I don't exactly know how to say her last name, but this author wrote Rebecca, where, if you know me, Rebecca is one of my favorite books of all time. I really love that book. It's one that has stuck with me for years. So I decided to give one of her other books a try. My Cousin Rachel takes place like kind of in Italy, which is one of the places I really want to visit. So I thought it would be a great option, and I gave it a go, and it was a good book. I gave it 4 stars. I don't want to give too many details because I think this is one of those books where it's more fun to go into it more blind. Basically, we're following our main character, Philip, and he is an orphan who was raised by his cousin, Ambrose. He loves Ambrose basically like a father and just really wants to be like Ambrose. Ambrose goes off to Italy and meets this woman, and her name is Rachel. It kind of goes from there. To begin with, we see both Ambrose and Philip are very much set on being bachelors. They're not really very interested in family life, not really interested in women, and then we kind of see that change a little bit throughout the book, and there's some shady stuff. Rachel is just kind of a suspicious person, and she's hiding something, and it's kind of a whole kerfluffle. So if you like those kinds of books, you may really love this. There definitely is that kind of dark gothic feel. It felt very much like the author of Rebecca. I will say, I read this, first of all, right after reading a not great book, which I think may have given me a little mini book slump, so that wasn't great. And in addition, I read this right before Christmas. It was a really busy time. I had an appointment in there, so I don't think I had a single day in the midst of reading this where I could just like sit down and really get into it. It was kind of just like while I was doing other things or like little bits here and there, which I do think took away from my reading experience, but it was still great, still fun, and it wasn't as good as Rebecca, but still really felt like that same kind of genre, same kind of vibe. Getting into the more festive reads, I read The Deal of a Lifetime by Frederick Bachman. This is just a really short book. I think I read it in like less than 24 hours or something. Lots of pictures. It is a really cute book, and basically we're just following an unnamed main character, and he is in the hospital and he's just observing his life and some of the things that he did not do as well as he should have. He was not always the best father, not always the best character, and him just kind of observing that. I think it's a very profound book, and it's so cool the amount of emotion Frederick Bachman can put into this book. Like I said, it was super short, but I gave it 4 stars, and I found it really sad, and it just, like I said, he just put so much into so little, and it really is cool, and I would highly recommend, especially for such a short book, super easy to read. Over Christmas, I read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is one of those books where I know the story, I've heard the story, I know what it's about, but I've never read the book. There are lots of books out there like this, and I decided to read this one over Christmas because obviously, and I loved this book. I think it was just that I read it over Christmas, and it really was very profound when I was in the midst of that same time. We're following Scrooge, who's a Scrooge. He's just a grump. He doesn't love Christmas, and we watch as three spirits, Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future, all visit him and show him different aspects of past, present, and future Christmases, and watch him kind of change his mindset and find a more valuable Christmas and put more value into important things in life. And I just thought that was so cool to read, especially over Christmas. Like, you're so busy, you're so caught up in the chaos of the season. It is cool to see that message of like, hey, there are more important things. And I personally really needed that this Christmas. So that was a great book. I gave it 4.25 stars. Like I said, I really did enjoy this book. My final book of the year was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I loved this book. I gave this book 5 stars. So cool to finish up the year on a 5-star. We are following our main character, Aza, and she has her best bud, Daisy. And Aza has OCD. She definitely is not always the most healthy, mentally speaking, and she's really struggling with some of these things and really struggling with feeling trapped in her own body. And in addition to that, the kind of the main plot, I guess, is that there's this billionaire who goes missing, and Aza knows the billionaire's son from camp years ago, and they rekindle their relationship, and she's just kind of trying to find his dad, help him through this. It's a whole thing. Daisy's there with her. She's just such a character, but it was really fun to see, and I really liked that Aza was struggling like she was, which sounds terrible, but I just think I related a lot to that, and I think it was cool to hear her thoughts on just her mental struggles and her, like I said, feeling like she's trapped in her own body. I think that was really cool to read about, and I love reading about characters that you can relate to, especially in the tough stuff. So that, I think, was kind of why I gave it 5 stars. And I believe that John Green has OCD. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was cool. It seemed very accurate based on my understanding of it. So I really respect that too. And like I said, just a great read. And it was really short, so really quick read. And yeah, it was very enjoyable. All right, those are the 11 books that I read in November and December. My reading was all over the board. I had some great books, some not so great books, and it was great. It was festive, it was fun, and I'm very excited to see where this next year leads me in my reading. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.